You know that feeling on a cold, windy night when you hear a sound carried on the gust, something almost like the distant baying of hounds? Well, for centuries, people have told stories of a spectral procession tearing across the winter sky, led by a ghostly hunter and their absolutely terrifying pack. Today, we're diving deep into that ancient and powerful myth, the wild hunt, and more specifically, its hounds. Because that's the whole question at the heart of this myth, isn't it? What if that sound, that chill that runs down your spine, is more than just the wind whistling through the trees? What if it's a sign that the veil between our world and another is getting paper thin? Now, to really understand the hunt, you've got to start with the hounds. And trust me, these are not your average animals. There's something far more profound, something that exists right on the very edge of our reality. Think of them like this. They're a living, breathing bridge connecting raw animal instinct with the supernatural world. So when you hear their baying in the stories, it's not just a sound. No, it's a psychological alarm bell, a signal from the universe itself that the solid, mundane world you thought you knew is starting to dissolve. But here's where it gets really interesting. There isn't just one version of this myth. At the head of the hunt, we find two completely different divine figures, and each one leads a very different kind of pack. And this reveals a huge conflict at the very heart of the wild itself. And wow, the contrast between the two packs, it's night and day. On one side, you have the hounds of the Roman goddess Diana, and on the other, the pack of the Germanic god Wotan, who you might know as Odin. One is all about guidance and truth, the other is about predation and war. They're like two sides of the same wild, untamable coin. Let's break them down. So first up, Diana's pack. The stories often describe them with these ethereal colors, silver or pure white, but with red ears, which in folklore have always been code for supernatural. See, they aren't just her companions. They're literally an extension of the goddess herself. They're her senses, sent out to track souls through the thickest, darkest parts of the human subconscious. Their goal isn't to kill. It's to relentlessly pursue truth and fate. Now, let's flip that coin over and look at Wotan's pack. It's a total shift. These are wolves and hounds that embody the raw fury of the battlefield. They represent something the Romans called the furor Teutonics, or the Teutonic fury, that ecstatic, terrifying madness of war. So where Diana's hounds guide, Wotan's beasts, well, they devour the weak. They are the perfect, brutal symbol of the warrior spirit. Okay, so they seem totally opposite, right? But here's the thing. Despite all their differences, both packs share one critical, otherworldly job. They are both deeply connected to the journey of the soul after death. And that brings us to this really cool mythological concept, the psychopomp. A psychopomp is, essentially, a conductor of souls. It's a guide whose whole purpose is to escort the newly deceased from our world to whatever comes next. And each pack does this job in its own unique way. Diana's hounds are like these supernatural shepherds, you know? They herd restless spirits together so they don't get lost and wander the earth. Wotan's pack, always the warriors, they act as scouts for the Einajar, the souls of heroic warriors slain in battle, leading them on that final, glorious march to Valhalla. Which kind of makes you wonder, right? Why dogs? Why hounds and wolves? Well, in both of these traditions, these animals are chosen for their loyalty, sure, but also for their ability to see what's hidden from us. They represent this primal intuition, a kind of sixth sense that's absolutely vital if you're going to confront the divine and navigate that path between life and death. All right, we've talked a lot about the hounds, but what about the ones holding the leash? Why are Diana and Wotan leading this ghostly chase across the sky in the first place? What's their real goal? And just like with their hounds, their motives couldn't be more different. Diana's hunt is all about preservation. She's acting as a guardian, maintaining the natural balance and protecting the sacred cycles of her domain. Wotan's hunt, on the other hand, is about preparation. He's gathering strength, collecting wisdom, and recruiting his army of the dead for Ragnarok, the final world-ending battle. One is seeking balance, the other is seeking power through struggle. And this is where the myth stops being about something out there in the sky and turns inward. Because the wild hunt isn't just a spooky story about gods and ghosts. Psychologically speaking, it's a powerful metaphor for a chase that's happening inside every single one of us.
From a psychological view, these hounds represent what you might call a shadow drive. It's that primal, instinctual part of yourself that's always pursuing your conscious self, your ego, and forcing you to drop the social masks and get back to who you really are. It's the hunt that forces you to face your own mortality.
Now, to be chased by Wotan's dark wolves, that represents facing something even more intense, the terrifying but necessary idea of ego death. It's the process of letting the person you think you are fall apart so you can be reborn as someone stronger, more authentic. It's a profound transformation, and yeah, it's often a painful one.
So, when you boil it all down, both sets of hounds, Diana's bright ones and Wotan's dark ones, they become these manifestations of a divine unrest inside us. They are that internal force that just refuses to let our soul get lazy or stagnant. They make sure the hunt never, ever stops, always pushing us toward our next evolution. So what does this ancient myth really mean for us, right here, right now? Well, that bang of hounds in the sky is so much more than a ghost story. It's an eternal call that speaks to the deepest, wildest parts of the human condition.
I mean, the hounds symbolize so much, don't they? The relentless march of time, the untamed wildness that exists in our own hearts, and our place in the great predatory cycle of life. They tap into our deepest, most primal conflict, that terrifying fear of being the prey, and at the same time, that secret, thrilling desire to become the predator and join the chase. Because in the end, the hunt never stops. It echoes through time, through our stories, and through our own minds. Which really just leaves us with one final thing to think about. In the great wild hunt of your own life, are you the one being chased, or are you the one doing the chasing?